Welcome to another episode of our podcast, where we dive into history and explore the fascinating narratives that shape our world. Today, we're taking a closer look at the British Empire, a vast and complex entity that spanned continents and centuries. From its roots in trade to its extensive colonial rule, the legacy of the British Empire is both rich and controversial. Sit back, relax, and join us as we journey through its history, highlighting key events, figures, and the dramatic expansion that made it a global power for over 300 years. The British Empire began its significant expansion in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, with the establishment of the English East India Company in 1600. Founded under a royal charter from Queen Elizabeth I, this company initially aimed to engage in trade with the East Indies, which included countries like India and China. But as the century passed, the East India Company morphed from a commercial venture into a formidable military and administrative authority. By the mid-19th century, it controlled large territories in India, exerting influence through military might, establishing its own currency, and even maintaining its own army and navy. It's interesting to note how the power dynamics shifted from corporate interests to imperial governance, especially after the Indian Rebellion of 1857 marked a significant turning point in British rule in India. Following this rebellion, the British Crown took direct control of India, marking the start of the period known as the British Raj. This brings us to a pivotal figure, Queen Victoria, who was proclaimed Empress of India in 1876, symbolizing the zenith of British authority and influence in the region. As we think about the vast reach of the empire, it was famously noted as the empire on which the sun never sets. What this meant was that the empire was so expansive that at any given moment, daylight was shining somewhere within its borders. By the 1920s, it was at its territorial pinnacle, covering about 13.7 million square miles and governing around 458 million people, a significant proportion of the global population at that time. This immense imperial structure, however, didn't come without its challenges. The loss of the American colonies in 1783 was a catastrophic event for Britain, forcing a realignment of its imperial policies. The Treaty of Paris acknowledged the independence of the 13 colonies, effectively ending the first phase of British imperial endeavors in North America. In the wake of this loss, Britain shifted its ambitions toward Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. This transition led to what historians refer to as the Second British Empire, an era distinguished by a focused drive towards colonization elsewhere, such as the founding of Australia, which began in 1788 as a new destination for British convicts. Moving back to India, the establishment of the British Raj introduced sweeping changes, both beneficial and detrimental. The British constructed essential infrastructure like railways, telegraphs, and irrigation systems that modernized the Indian subcontinent. Yet, this era was also marked by widespread economic exploitation and tragic famines that resulted in countless deaths, heightening tensions that would culminate in the rise of Indian nationalism. In this period, the viceroy became an important figure as the representative of the crown. The first viceroy was Lord Canning, who oversaw the transition from East India Company rule to direct British governance. One cannot discuss this era of the British Empire without mentioning Cecil Rhodes, a man who epitomized British imperial ambition in southern Africa. Rhodes, a mining magnate and politician, dreamed of a railway from Cape to Cairo, linking British territories across the continent. His efforts to expand British influence included founding the De Beers Diamond Company and establishing the British South Africa Company. It's fascinating to see how figures like Rhodes are integral to understanding the motives and mechanics of imperialism. Now, let's shift our focus to Africa during the late 19th century, a time referred to as the Scramble for Africa, which saw an intense race among European powers to claim territories across the continent. The Berlin Conference in 1884, convened by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, set guidelines for this imperial expansion, leading to Britain acquiring major regions including Egypt and Sudan. These territories were critical for controlling trade routes, particularly the Suez Canal, which served as a shortcut to India and other parts of Asia. Unfortunately, this greed for resources often led to conflict, exploitation, and lasting issues that many African nations continue to face today. Another significant chapter in the history of the British Empire is the First Opium War between Britain and China from 1839 to 1842. This conflict arose when Britain persisted in trading opium, a drug that China had outlawed. Britain's superior military and naval might forced China to capitulate, resulting in the Treaty of Nanjing. This was the first of many so-called unequal treaties that granted Britain significant concessions, including the cession of Hong Kong and the opening of 5 ports to British trade. Hong Kong would remain a British colony for many years, illustrating the far-reaching impact of imperial treaties. After World War I, the nature of the British Empire began to evolve. The British dominions, self-governing colonies like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, started asserting greater autonomy, culminating in the Balfour Declaration of 1926. This document recognized them as equal entities within the empire. By the Statute of Westminster in 1931, full legislative independence was granted to these nations, although they continued to maintain a symbolic allegiance to the British Crown. Such changes reflected the shifting dynamics in imperialism and the growing desire for self-rule among colonized nations. Fast forward to 1947, and we see the climax of the struggle for Indian independence. Under the leadership of figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, India moved towards freedom after decades of colonial rule. However, this independence came with profound challenges, as the country was partitioned into 2 separate dominions, India and Pakistan, triggering one of the largest mass migrations in history. This period caused immense suffering, leaving a legacy that would shape the subcontinent for generations. The last Viceroy of India, Lord Louis Mountbatten, played a significant role in managing this transition, overseeing the partition and setting the stage for a new era. As we reflect on the British Empire, we must also consider its modern legacy. The Commonwealth of Nations, originally known as the British Commonwealth, represents a voluntary association of 56 independent countries, many of which were once part of the empire. Established under the London Declaration in 1949, the Commonwealth seeks to foster cooperation and promote democracy among its members. Despite the complexities of the past, it symbolizes an effort for former colonies to unite while fostering their own governance and identity, showing that the echoes of the British Empire still resonate today. In this episode, we've traced the extensive history of the British Empire, from its early beginnings with the East India Company to the transformational era of the British Raj in India. We've discussed key figures like Queen Victoria and Cecil Rhodes, the implications of the scramble for Africa, and the significant consequences of the Opium Wars. Finally, we explored the independence movements that reshaped nations and the formation of the Commonwealth, reflecting both the challenges and contributions of a colonial history that continues to influence global relations today. Thank you for joining us in today's exploration of the British Empire. We hope this discussion has provided you with new insights and a deeper understanding of this complex historical narrative. Join us next time as we continue to uncover more stories from history that impact our world today. Until then, keep questioning and exploring the past, for it holds lessons essential for our future.